distance. Oop. All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Dove Valley Deep Divers. Lance is obviously out again. He's out hunting, just same reason why he missed last week. He should be back next week. But tonight, I'm being joined by two awesome people. Carl Dumler, the co-host normally of Building the Broncos, and James Campbell, often contributor in the chat. Been getting to know him. Awesome dude. And Carl, of course, is just so awesome. Guys, how's it going tonight?
It's going pretty good, thank you, Eric. Really good week. So, got a week off from the school, so that's going to be good. How about you, Carl?
Looks like Carl kind of froze out on us for some reason here. So we'll try to get Carl back in here. Not sure what's going on with that. Guys, tonight we do have a wonderful topic, obviously, with the Broncos getting ready to take on the Kansas City Chiefs. Huge divisional game, big rivalry, and, of course, the Kansas City Chiefs are the reigning Super Bowl champions. And as everybody knows, they've got that quarterback that's just going to be a pain in the butt for the Broncos for the next 10 years, 12 years, however long, and even beyond that. But before we get to that, we do have some matters of business that we've got to attend to. First of all, make sure you guys are following us on Twitter at Erick Trickel and at JamesC_MHH. You guys can find us there on Twitter over that. Make sure you guys are also following at the Valley Deep Divers podcast at DVDD_pod, and Carl Dumler as well. When he gets back in here, you'll be able to see his Twitter account on the underlay as well. I think it's Carl Dumler MHH, but I'm not positive on that. Also, make sure you guys are following at Huddle Up Pod, the mothership of all the podcasts, Building the Broncos, the Valley Deep Divers, Mile High Insiders. Huddle Ups is the mothership. It's where we all come from. And then, of course, for all of our written content from myself, Carl, Nick, James, Lance, everybody, make sure you guys are following at Mile High Huddle, and make sure you guys also have milehighhuddle.com bookmarked on your internet browsers. I mean, it's just one click away. Be able to get there rather quickly.
Absolutely, you need it. You need it in your lives.
And then also, guys, make sure you guys go over to sportsbetting.com. As tonight's live stream podcast is brought to you by sportsbetting.com. Broncos Country's gambling is now legal in the state of Colorado, as everybody knows. And here's what makes sportsbetting.com a no-brainer for all sports fans. Sharp odds and low juice. They have in-house bookmakers. They're not third-party provider of odds. Reduced juice, best prices. Hassle-free bonuses, one-time rollover, means the bonus money is yours after you bet it one time. Other sites range from 5 to 30 times. 24/7 live customer support. Always a real person in the U.S. Here's the kicker. At sportsbetting.com/milehighhuddle, you can get 100% risk-free week of sports betting up to $1,000. Not just one bet, but all of your bets. Play for a week, and if your losses exceed your winnings at the end of the week, sportsbetting.com/milehighhuddle will cover 100% of the difference up to $1,000 with a one-time rollover. So head on over to sportsbetting at www.sportsbetting.com/milehighhuddle. That's www.sportsbetting.com/milehighhuddle and capitalize on a risk-free week of sports betting up to $1,000. Now, as I said, we have a wonderful topic. We're going to be talking about keys on both offense and defense when it comes to beating the Chiefs. And, of course, it's just going to be a tough game. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, all the weapons they have, Travis Kelce, adding Le'Veon Bell with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who I absolutely love pre-drafting. Nick was a fool for hitting that pick. But, I mean, just so many weapons on that offense. Denver did get a little bit of good news, which is unfortunate because there's always that whole thing of when you beat a team, you always want to beat them at the best. And Mitchell Schwartz is the best right tackle in the NFL, in my opinion. And he's not going to be in there the game, which Denver should definitely exploit. But, James, what for the Broncos offense, what's your big key for the Broncos offense against the Chiefs?
I think just playing a clean game. I think the Broncos are a team at the moment. Yeah, they can beat a team like the Jets if they make mistakes, but a real NFL team with a proper head coach, they're not going to be capable of winning unless they play a clean game, no turnovers. I mean, there's snow predicted for Denver right here on Sunday. Well, let's hope there's some sort of snow and after all the fires in Colorado at the moment. So let's hope that can get there. But yeah, I mean, no fumbles. I mean, Melvin Gordon, if he's back and healthy, he's going to be good key, but he can't fumble the ball. Drew Lock, I mean, massive test for him in the colds and snow. He's got to hold on to the ball. Big test of his thumb injury and how far back he's from that. No picks. I don't want to see any picks, but on defense, they need to be picking up interceptions. You can't give that offense any more extra first downs. You just can't.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, playing a clean game, as you said, it is so vital. They were able to get away with 2 late interceptions against the Patriots. They were able to get away with those 3 bad interceptions. One of them pick 6 against the Jets. And quite frankly, there was a little bit of luck involved with them being able to overcome that and still pull out the win in that. So yes. definitely a big key for this is you just can't do that. You can't beat great teams when you shoot yourself in the foot. And beyond that, I mean, the drops too. I mean, obviously, big deal last week. I mean, they had multiple drops that would have been touchdowns or big plays. You're just not going to win games like that way. Now, my big matchup for the Broncos offense, or big key, is when I watch the Chiefs defense, their secondary is playing extremely well. Their defensive line, their front 7, plays really well when it comes to the run, for the most part, and getting after the quarterback. But those linebackers in coverage, they're a little bit exploitable. I mean, they have 3 linebackers that kind of are rotating there for that coverage kind of role. And they also have the 3rd safety, Daniel Sorensen, as well, who kind of goes in there. And all of them are allowing almost, not quite, but about 80 to 90% catch completion percentage when targeted. And the big thing is with Damian Wilson, Anthony Hitchens, and Ben Nyman, however you say his name, terrible with pronouncing names. They're not the most athletic bunch, and Denver has these 2 athletic tight ends. And I know I've given a lot of crap on Albert Okwuegbunam here, but there is no doubt that he is an athletic freak. This is the perfect game for Denver to use those 2 tight ends. Now, it's going to be snowy, which that is going to be a bit of concern with Locke being able to hold on the ball. I mean, I know everybody likes to make a big deal about the jokes about having small hands and stuff like that, but this is a game where those small hands is actually a valid concern when it comes to Drew Lock. Right, and yes. Using Noah Fant and Albert Okwuegbunam against these linebackers is going to be so vital for them because all of them, most of their yards that they've given up, these linebackers, has been yards after the catch. Matching them up against these athletic guys at tight end, Denver can really move the ball. It can help take pressure off the wide receivers and help add pressure to the safeties, who they've got their work cut out for them with Denver being basically back to full strength on offense.
Noah Fant coming back is going to be so huge for this offense. I mean, Albert he's going to, like that first interception in that Pats game, I kind of felt like if he was quicker in and out of his route, Drew Lock isn't locking in on his route as long, and Fant's going to be quicker in and out of his routes. He's going to move laterally quicker than Albert O can. So that's going to be a bigger test for the Chiefs. And boy, that's a real shot in the arm for the Broncos offense.
Yeah, Carl. So talking about the big key for the Broncos offense against this Chiefs defense. So what's your big key for this Broncos offense?
Well, it's completely opposite of last week's game. I said last week on the show that the Patriots love to defend the middle of the field, and they do a great job at that you have to attack the edges just like the Broncos did in the game. And now it's where you attack the middle of the field. The outside edges are actually pretty darn strong.
Oh man, we lost.
Looks like Carl's having some internet issues. But what he's saying is about with them is attacking the middle of the field. That actually goes in line with attacking those linebackers and the issues they have there, putting the strain on the safeties on the deep end. Especially with KJ Hamler too. Having him back is also an underrated thing because he can take the top off the defense over the middle of the field, which is going to put even more pressure on these safeties that the Chiefs have. So it's a combination of everything that they have. Hopefully Carl can get his internet figured out and get back in here and finish his take. But right now, guys, we're going to take a minute, say hello to all of you wonderful people that are in the chat. Definitely a bunch of people. Actually got to get Lance in here. Lance Anderson says, checking in to say, have a good show, guys. No luck yet, but we got another couple days. See you next week. Well, Lance, we're hoping that you get lucky and you're able to limit out, but it's a shame that you haven't yet. But, hey, man, I got to say, I'm a little bit glad because I get 2 weeks away from you on this show. Anyways, and then
yeah, that's fun.
Stony Neff says, I've been watching the Broncos since 77. I never remember a 0-3 start at home. Well, I mean, you've been watching the Broncos a little bit longer than I've been alive. I mean, what, about 15 years longer than I've been alive. But I can't remember a 0-3 start at home to start a season either. Maybe mistaken. It may have happened. I just can't remember it. And then let's see here. There was one comment here, and I know John pulled it up earlier, which, John, thank you for that. And here it is. Logan says, if the Broncos win, I'm going to shave my head. All right, Logan, if the Broncos win, I'm going to hold you to this, and we're going to want pictures. We want proof of that. I mean,
live stream.
live stream it there onto Twitter for all of us, and make sure you tag us. Definitely. I mean, if the Broncos win, it's going to be a big deal. It's going to shock the NFL world. Nobody's giving the Broncos much of a chance outside of Broncos fans. I mean, I think I don't know everybody's predictions, but I think most of us at Mile High Huddle actually picked Denver to lose. So it definitely would be a big shock if the Broncos end up winning this one. Wonderful shock for Broncos fans and for us and everything, but still a big shock. But some other guys in here, we got Nasruddin, we got Big E. What's up, Big E? Glad to see you here, Stony Neff. Juana, of course. We've got Nugmaster. I saw Charlie Beagles in here, Paul Jackson, Adam Villanueva on Facebook. Got a couple guys here. Well, somebody at least from a Chiefs fan there with Lolit McGee saying, y'all going to get smoked. Hey, we might.
Yeah, that's true.
It's definitely a possibility. I mean, it kind of looks like this kind of reminds me. I mean, a lot of people a couple weeks ago, they gave the Raiders absolutely zero chance, and the Raiders went in and they managed to beat the Chiefs. So definitely a possibility. We've got Eclipse coming in here, and we've got Leon Thomas making a wonderful comment saying, run the ball down the throats and put Patty on his back. You got to rattle him, period. And this is actually very true. Yeah. And this is going to be a good way to kind of transition a little bit over to what the defensive key is here. But running the ball down their throats, I mean, definitely, especially with it going to be snowy. If it's windy on top of that, running the ball is going to be key. We saw the Chiefs are able to do that. We know the Broncos, they can do it. Having Melvin Gordon and Phillip Lindsay back, I mean, that's going to be huge for this offense if they have to go towards or rely on that run game. But go ahead.
Sorry, the run game, I think whoever runs the ball most efficiently, that's going to be such a huge key. Man, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I mean, if there is ever a case for taking a round one running back, late in the first, he's the back. Like, you want like a Devonta Freeman type body and athleticism, but elite contact balance, hands, pass, but it's all this. Like, it's the football IQ that he has that is just phenomenal. And of all the places, he went there to the Chiefs in such a run-friendly scheme. And, you know, Eric, like, if you're a good running back, you're going to find out year one, and that's the level they're going to be. Running backs hit their peak early, so get the best 5 years out of them. That is when you take a running back late. Yeah. That is the type of running back. I mean, second overall pick on, say, a Saquon Barkley or Leonard Fournette, that's a stupid idea. Like, flat out. But late in the first, you make a case for Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and just a phenomenal back. But Melvin Gordon coming back is equally huge for the Broncos. I mean, Lindsay does give the Broncos a lot of energy, but Melvin Gordon's a better back. And, like, the Broncos didn't involve Lindsay at all in the past game. And Melvin Gordon's ability there is going to be huge. So.
Yeah, and definitely. And on the whole point of the Chiefs taking Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I mean, you said it late in the first, 32nd overall pick. They're the reigning Super Bowl champions. There is nothing wrong with them taking that offense and just adding yet another element to it. Like, that is such a smart pickup for them. I mean, there's not many other players that late in the first round that could have come in and provided as much juice as they have. I mean, I know that one running back, Damian Williams, I think it was, had that great Super Bowl and the playoff run, but he ended up opting out, so it just made the pick look even a bit better. They could have used a little bit help on defense, sure, but I mean, there is nothing wrong with the late first-round pick just going and getting a guy who, to me, was the best back in this class. I absolutely loved Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I think I ended up having him number 2 overall, but it was really close. Do have a couple super chats before we get to the defensive keys. Stu Meat comes in with a $4.99 donation. Doesn't add any comment, but Stu, thank you. We appreciate your donation, as we always do. Then we got Royal Dungeva. Sorry if I mispronounced the last name. As I will always state on the show, I am terrible with pronouncing names. And actually, real quick, when I had to learn how to say Albert Okwuegbunam's name for a recording I had to do, I spent a good hour and a half sitting there, listening to it on Google Play, repeating it, and saying it back. Took a long time for me to sit there and get it down. I'm terrible with names. And he asks, any bold predictions? I think for this game, one bold prediction I have is I think the Broncos end up with 6 sacks. What about you, James?
Ooh, let's see. I think... bold prediction. I think I want to see a punt return. I want to see the Broncos finally bust this stupid punt return the streak that they have, and I think maybe they could do it against the Chiefs. Let's see.
Yeah, in our group chat beforehand, Carl was actually talking about how the Chiefs have been struggling on special teams, and so it's definitely a possibility. I'll be kind of curious and to see. I think Deontay Spencer's out for the game, or it's not looking likely that he'll play. I can't remember which, but they have a plan to go ahead. I know there was a talk about Phillip Lindsay, Tim Patrick, Tyree Cleveland, obviously, who all offseason I talked and hyped up his ability on special teams, and he got. I mean, and the sucky part is a couple weeks ago, Spencer was really close to a punt return touchdown, and Tyree Cleveland whiffed the block that would have opened it up for a touchdown, which absolutely sucks, but. It is what it is. And then Chris McKay comes in with a $10 donation, says, off topic, but do you guys, if you play fantasy, have an opinion on AB's value with the Bucks? Sorry, haha, just had to ask. Go Broncos this week. We can get that dub. I feel it. Keep taking deep shots. I'm not a big fantasy football guy. My thing is I've just seen too many fans sit there and harp on players for getting hurt or not getting the touch and things like that. It just kind of ruined the fun for fantasy football for me. But James, I know that you play, so what are your thoughts on it?
So the Bucks, they've got a really banged up wide receiver core. That's one of the reasons why they're considering. I mean, all 3 of their wide receivers are carrying real injuries. Scotty Miller, Mike Evans. I mean, but the key cog is really Chris Godwin. And 84th pick in that 2017 draft, he is the pick that stands out because I really, really liked him in that class, Chris Godwin. And he is the one that makes their offense tick. He's so critical in that intermediate and the short game. He is the one that is the chain mover. So Antonio Brown, I mean, he's not eligible until week 9, really, is he? So, he's still got to pass all the COVID protocols, got to get up to speed with the playbook. But if Tom Brady's pushing for the move, then something's going on there. He likes the chemistry. I mean, but you do wonder about his impact on the locker room, but can you put up with, how many ever games of, Antonio Brown? Yeah, you do it for a season. I mean, it's 1-year deal, so it's not, you move on afterwards. So, if it helps...
Yeah. Go ahead. You can finish.
If it helps them win, or, I don't think it will, but that's what they're pushing for.
Yeah, my concern is everybody sees it with Tom Brady all the time about how he's very passionate and yells at his players and everything like that. I have issues with it being called passion because other players, they get called a ruckus and a problem maker, but that's a whole different point. Is with all the documented problems with Antonio Brown that he has, is what's going to happen to that locker room if Tom Brady cracks down on Antonio Brown for running the wrong route, doing something wrong? What's going to happen to that locker room? That's one concern I have for it. But Carl, glad to have you back. How about we try this again?
I'm sorry, guys.
For the Broncos offense against the Chiefs defense.
Okay, so my key is attack the middle of the field. I'm sure you guys have talked about this a little bit. Yeah. The weakness of this team is the linebackers in coverage, and even the safeties have had their struggles this year. And right now, their cornerbacks on the outside are playing pretty darn well. And so, yeah, this is the opposite of what we did against the Patriots. You attack the middle of the field here. This is why Noah Fant, Albert Okwuegbunam could have big games. Here's something I really want to see. They did this against the Titans, is when they have both running backs on the field and they have one running out into the flat, and then they have the other one running kind of an outward, inward route to the middle of the field, especially in the goal line situations. Worked great against the Titans. I think that'll work great against the Chiefs because they have no linebackers that can keep up with a guy like Phillip Lindsay. He could have a dynamic play in the pass game. Even though I've said in the past he is not a great guy in the pass game, you could still have a couple designated pass plays just for that.
Yeah, and my key is actually right in there is utilizing Noah Fant and Albert Okwuegbunam against those linebackers. And then when you add in those running backs, Melvin Gordon and Phillip Lindsay, even if they put them both out there on the field, go with 22 personnel really. I mean, you are just putting so much strain on those safeties and those linebackers that I struggle to see how the Chiefs would really cover them without the Broncos shooting themselves in the foot.
Yeah, I'm with you there. So, that'd be my game plan. Maybe a couple handoffs to KJ Hamler with some end arounds. Just that kind of speed against their defense. The nice thing is with Hamler having hardly played, there's not a whole lot of film out there on how they're going to use him. So use that to your advantage. Get a couple plays where you really get the ball in his hands. And sometimes when they haven't really watched the player, when they have not game planned for a player, that speed can really catch them off guard.
Yeah. And for Locke, it's easy passes, easy completions. Just he can get it quickly to KJ Hamler, and he's going to be so important. Just the spacing of the offense, and finally, we are so close to seeing this Broncos offense at almost full potential. I mean, obviously we're down Sutton, but all the other main pieces are finally coming back, it seems.
Yeah. I do like this comment here by Charlie Beagle. In bad weather, the advantage goes to the receivers. They know where they're going. I would say, let me put a little caveat on that. If there's no wind.
Yeah.
If there's wind, then it becomes a huge advantage for the defense. And, I mean, you got big-armed quarterbacks in Locke and Mahomes who can throw it through the wind, but it's still going to affect them. And even the wide receivers are going to be affected just because the ball is still going to flutter some. And it's not going to be quite there as accurate as they're used to. So I don't think it's supposed to be windy on Sunday. I think it's maybe 5 to 10 miles an hour, so that shouldn't be a big deal. But like I said, if there's wind, that's kind of what you saw last time the Chiefs and Broncos faced off. There was a little bit of wind, and the receivers got some nice plays for the Chiefs, obviously. But it still mattered in the game.
Yep, definitely. And just got a couple more comments here before we get to the defensive side of the ball. Brian Greenfield comes in with a $10 donation saying, "Sup, Eric." Hey, Brian, what about saying sup to Carl and James here? I mean, just kidding, Brian.
Well, given I just got in here. So.
We've been live for about almost 25 minutes now, and Carl's been in here for maybe 2 total.
Yeah.
So, but Brian, we appreciate the donation as always, man. Thank you for being here tonight. And thank you for joining us. And then Chase Fulner comes in with the $5 donation. Hey, fellas, I know he's a rookie, but are you worried about Cush? Also, do you think part of Bryson struggling is McGovern being gone? This is something that I've talked about quite a bit on Twitter and in our group chat and everything like that. And I am worried about Cushenberry. I think that the Patriots game was a good game. I think that his confidence was kind of running low. But the issue is that the Patriots defensive line, they're not supremely talented. So it's fine that he was able to bounce back a little bit. But now he's going against some pretty good talents on the Chiefs defensive line. Is he going to be able to maintain that? Or is he going to fall back to how he was when he was facing against Steve McClendon and Quinnen Williams, or Casey Williams and the other Steelers defensive lineman whose names escape me, or the Buccaneers defensive lineman, Vitavea, and the others that they had? it's going to be a question for me. I am a little bit worried about him. I hope he can bounce back. This year was always going to be a rough year for him because there's a lot that he has to work on to get that technical refinement that he needs for the NFL.
Yeah.
And as for Reisner, I don't know what it is why he's struggling. Like, it doesn't look like he's trying to do too much to help Cushenberry. It doesn't look like he's trying to do too much to help Bulls either. It just looks like he's just trying to do just a lot by himself and not trusting his teammates. His passing off blocks has been ugly and weird. It just seems like there's some sort of mental block with him, and hopefully Mike Munchak's able to get through to him. And it looked like he kind of did against the Patriots, but again, we come back to that's not that best talented defensive line there. Maybe that's why he was doing well. Time will tell, but I don't think it really has much to do with McGovern being gone.
Yeah, most of his reps that I've seen him get beat were when he was one-on-one, asked to do his job, and he just got whooped. And so that's what leaves me a little bit concerned. I do think you're right. Maybe he's trying to do a little too much. Last year, he talked about how much he wanted to be a leader for this offensive line, and now you add a rookie, you add in Glasgow. Of course, now we got a new right tackle. And so he's kind of that guy that's supposed to be the face of the offensive line. And so I do think he's maybe trying to do too much. And I think as the season goes on, he'll get more and more comfortable with everybody around him. Cushenberry, the issues that I'm seeing with him right now are the same issues that I saw in college. I know a lot of people were just really hyped up about this guy, and I like him. But it was easy to see there were some concerns that were covered up because he had a great team around him. But even there, you saw him in pass sets get beat quite a few times his last year in college. I thought his year before that was actually better in pass protection than it was his last year.
He allowed like 30 some odd pressures last year in pass protection. So yeah, it was definitely a rough year.
Right. And so, I mean, the big thing that he brings is his intelligence. The nice thing with the LSU offensive line, he always had them in perfect position. And so as he gets more and more used to things with the Broncos and calling out things on the offensive line, you'll start seeing him improve on some of that. And having Mike Munchak as your mentor, working with you, coaching you up, he'll get better. But this will be a pretty rough game. This is one of the tougher ones for the interior guys. Chris Jones, I mean, one of the top 3 defensive linemen in football right now. So this is going to be a real test to see what he brings to the table. And
James, I definitely want to get your opinion on it, but before we do, is on Chris Jones, is Vic Fangio said this week that he was really hoping that he would go somewhere else, because he doesn't want to face against him, and it's understandable. He is one of the best interior defensive linemen in the NFL.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, James, about Cushenberry and Reisner, what's your opinion on that?
Again, O-line's such a cerebral position, and it does need a lot of adjustment. And Cushenberry, he definitely needed a lot more refinement, I felt, than even, say, a Matt Hennessy. But yeah, I think Cushenberry, he's got potential to be a decent center. I'm not sure how high his ceiling really is in the NFL, really. But yeah, I think he's a rookie being thrown in to the Wolves. I can live with the performances, but let's see improvement week on week. Let's see if he can continue his game from the Patriots. Obviously, it doesn't get any better any easier in terms of tests with Chris Jones.
And I was actually just getting ready to pull that comment up from CatX Kaplan saying British man knows football, and James definitely does know his football. It's been awesome to get to know him a little bit privately in our group chat and everything like that. And you definitely know what you're talking about when it comes to football, and it's awesome to see obviously we always hear about the reach that football has around the world, but it's often awesome to see it like actually meet somebody that football has reached you from somewhere else in the world.
Yeah.
And Charlie Beagle says you look like a Tottenham Hotspurs fan to me, and I don't even get the reference, so yeah. I just wanted to mention that to you.
Yeah. My mum is a Tottenham fan, though.
Oh, there you go. See, nailed it.
And then of course Malcolm Brown, the local Alaskan in here, gotta say hello to that. Hello from Homer, Alaska. And hello, Malcolm, from myself in Alaska, and people from all around the world. As much grief as I give Homer, I was actually there not too long ago. Went fishing out off the spit, Homer spit. Couldn't think of that word. And went halibut fishing. Caught 9 of our 10 fish for that. And I forget, because it's been so long since I've been there. I forget how freaking beautiful Homer is. Absolutely gorgeous. If anybody who ever comes to Alaska, you definitely got to check out Homer. Just be careful of the hippies. And Brian Greenfield comes in with another $5 donation. Says, so what do you guys think about the Chiefs being without number 2 wide receiver Sammy Watkins? I wasn't super worried about him if he played. I think I was actually kind of looking forward to it. I wanted to see what Michael Ojimudi would be able to do against him. But it's definitely making Michael Ojemudi's job a little bit easier and AJ Boye's job a little bit easier. And it's going to help them be able to focus on taking out Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce a little bit more. But they still have so many weapons on that Chiefs offense. It's just the next man up, and this is the offense that you really want to be that next man to step up.
Yeah, they have so many weapons behind him. Mecole Hardman, I feel like, is a tougher matchup just because of his big time. I mean, Sammy Watkins is fast, but Mecole Hardman is lightning fast. And and he's got that quick twitch ability just to get in and out of breaks. I always thought he was a tougher matchup for the Broncos and what they're trying to do on defense. And I mean, even Byron Pringle, I think he's kind of a forgotten man that can go out there and make some plays. And so, him being out, I don't think that's a big deal. Really, it's Mitchell Schwartz being out is the huge news for the Broncos. That is a huge break for them.
And we'll use that to transition to our defensive keys here, since talking about Mitchell Schwartz, and I've seen a couple other comments about him too. But my big key here, and this is one that's going to take a little bit of adjustment from the Broncos, and we were talking about this in our group chat earlier, but for me, my biggest key is exploiting the fact that Mike Remmers is a starting right tackle for the Chiefs now with Mitchell Schwartz out. And the best way to do that is you swap Bradley Chubb and Malik Reid as a pass rush and as run defense, and to try to help keep Patrick Mahomes in the pocket. It is the favorable matchup for the Broncos to have Bradley Chubb going against Mike Remmers. Now, part of the reason for that is that on the other side of it, Eric Fisher, he's developed into a pretty solid tackle. I know a lot of people still think he's absolutely terrible, but he's not great. He's not terrible. He's kind of somewhere there in between, but he does pretty well when handling speed to power and power rushers, which that is what Chubb is more often than anything. He can obviously bend the corner a little bit, but Eric Fisher struggles with the speed. So Malik Reid has that speed a little bit more. You want him against Eric Fisher to try to win that matchup there. And you want Mike Remmers, who just is bad, and you want your best pass rusher against that. And the biggest thing is, and I know Carl and we talked about this pretty exclusively, really, was the biggest thing too is when it comes to Bradley Chubb against Mike Remmers, is Patrick Mahomes really likes to roll out to his right, and he's a lot better rolling out to his right, which is natural for right-handed quarterbacks. I mean, obviously, it's just a more natural throwing motion instead of having to turn your whole body. It's more natural for them. And Bradley Chubb holding up that edge is to try to keep Patrick Mahomes in the pocket where he does struggle a little bit more out of, is so beneficial for this Broncos defense. Malik Reid, I know he had those 2 sacks last week, but he absolutely got destroyed as a run defender. And Cam Newton was able to take off multiple times because he was just taken out of the play. He couldn't maintain the edge to keep Cam Newton in the pocket. And Denver was able to win that game because, let's face it, Cam Newton isn't even close to the level of player that Patrick Mahomes is. You're not going to win the game if you're letting Patrick Mahomes get out of the pocket like they were with Cam Newton and take off and use his legs. You've got to switch them up. You've got to exploit that. And I know that you're taking a little bit hit when you're looking at pass rush proficiency because Bradley Chubb is like 10-point-something off facing off against the left tackle, whereas he's a 3.8 on the right side. So you're taking a hit there. But Bradley Chubb, we saw him destroy backup tackles against the Jets. I think he can destroy Mike Remmers, who probably has a little bit of PTSD when it comes to facing the Broncos after that Super Bowl. Similarly to the Cam Newton last week, guys. So kind of a trend here, like try to exploit the guy who's probably scared of playing the Broncos a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I did want to real quick just say, hey, everyone. Yes, thank you for welcoming me back. Saw a couple different super chats from Brian and Chris. So appreciate you guys welcoming me back. Just unfortunate internet issues that I didn't realize were going to happen. But yeah, you're right. I've been saying for a long time now with the Chiefs, Mahomes, yes, he is a top 3 quarterback in football, but he does have one really big weakness, and that is he wants to play out of the structure of the play. Now, in today's NFL, you need quarterbacks that can play out of the structure of the play because everybody's so fast on defense. You need a quarterback that can just make things happen. And, of course, Patrick Mahomes, the best in the business.
Yeah.
But the best thing you can do –
among the best in the business.
Okay, well, we can argue about that. Oh, yeah, I guess so. But Russell Wilson just does so many things well. Like, he does things from the structure of the play itself. That's why he is my top quarterback in football. It's not Patrick Mahomes.
Reid.
Yes. But no, it is. You force him to stay in the pocket. The Broncos, when that 2015 season, I mean, we can go back to that and talk a lot about it. But that game against Aaron Rodgers, one of the best game plans I have seen from a defensive coordinator. And essentially it was, you keep him in the pocket. Even if your guys have to cover sometimes 4 or 5 seconds, you make him uncomfortable from having to stay in there. Patrick Mahomes is always looking to leave the pocket. It's why he makes life a living hell for his tackles sometimes, because they don't always know where is Patrick Mahomes. And that Super Bowl against the 49ers, the first half, they did such a great job of keeping him in the pocket, taking away the right side. And then, of course, he had their great rookie pass rusher coming from the left side. And so for the Broncos, it is so important for them to hold that edge. And Malik Reid, yes, he had some great plays last week, but like you said, he had some plays where he just got taken out of the play. And they attacked his seam in the run game. So you can't have that with Patrick Mahomes. You can't have that with their run game that they have going right now. Keep him in the pocket.
James, what's your key for the Broncos defense?
Well, more of the same, really. I mean, gap discipline. I mean, that's fundamentally sound defensive football. You want to, confine Mahomes to playing within the structure, as Carl's saying, 100%. But on the back end of the defense, I don't want to see miscommunications. I mean, AJ Bouye coming in. Yeah, the Broncos actually had some practice time now, but you always worry new people coming in and how it's going to affect that communication. You just can't afford the big plays. You just don't want to be going down 14 points early against the Chiefs, because then you're playing catch up and that feeds right into their game plan. Right.
Force them to dink and dunk down the field.
Yeah.
Be disciplined. Make the tackles. That's something the Broncos have struggled with this year. And then I'd like to see him do some some crisscrossing on the defensive line, just because they got a lot of new players there. You got some great players like Draymond Jones back. You got some guys that can really use that to their advantage. Hopefully their offensive line will have some miscommunications, and maybe you can force a fumble that gets you that big play that helps you get the win. You got to be creative but smart.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
And a couple other comments that we got in here, real quick. Got Chris McKay with another $5 donation. Thank you, Chris, for that. We appreciate it. It says, is Bowles a lock to be re-signed now, and should we just offer him an extension sooner than later? Carl, why don't you go ahead and start us off with this?
Yeah, I would sign him now. I know he's had certain times where he showed decent ability. I mean, last year he had about a 4 or 5 game stretch where he looked like a top 10 tackle, and then he kind of fell off again. This looks like it's real. You're seeing things this year that you didn't see before. He has talked about that relationship he has with Munchak, that they've learned to communicate with each other, to figure things out, to really break down his film. He looks like a true top 10 left tackle in football. And I mean, if you're building a team, of course, quarterback is first, pass rusher is second, probably that third position is tackle.
Yeah.
And so when it's the third most valuable position, you pay that person. I told Nick on Tuesday, I said, I hate saying this, but I think Garrett Bowles is top of my list of guys I have to get signed this offseason.
Yeah.
Even more than Justin Simmons. And I hate saying that because I love Justin Simmons. But just Garrett Bowles is just such an important position. And we're seeing it takes time. Yes, you have a few people that come in that can look good as rookies. But for the most part, most offensive linemen take 2-3 years, sometimes even 4, like Garrett Bowles, before they really start getting it in the NFL level.
The Broncos hardly put Garrett Bowles in a position to succeed by chopping and changing offensive schemes and offensive coordinators every single year. I mean, Garrett Bowles, this is the first year he's had the same offensive line coach since at least high school. And that's a big deal in terms of his development. Yes, he's older, but he's reaching his physical and emotional and mental peak. He's at the peak of his powers, and he's looking at as a really good tackle. And the only question, I think his age stops him from being the highest paid tackle in the NFL. I think we could be looking at a $17 million at least deal, APY, maybe 3-4 years. The only limiting factor is the cash flows for the Broncos, and that's going to really limit their ability to sign their free agents and get the premium free agents that they need. Push comes to shove, I agree with Carl. I mean, I'd rather sign Garrett Bowles right now. I'd rather sign him even more than Simmons at the end of the season.
Yeah, and before we get much hate for that, just got to remind everybody too, it's a lot easier to find safeties than it is to find a star left tackle. Even a capable left tackle, it's a lot easier to find capable safeties, especially in Vic Fangio's defense, which it asks a lot of the safeties, but it's very easy for safeties to come in and grow and develop in this scheme. It's just, I hope Denver gets it done sooner. I think it was Benjamin Albright, I think he said on his radio show about how Denver's either looking at starting negotiations with Garrett Bowles' camp, or they've already have. Can't remember which it was, but I've been hearing something similar that they definitely want to try to get the deal done sooner rather than later, basically because the longer they wait, the better he plays, the more consistent he plays, the more he's going to cost. And they're trying to use his age, they're trying to use his past consistency issues to try to keep that number a little bit down. And each game he plays at a high level consistently, the less leverage they have using that consistency argument to try to get him at a cheaper price.
Can we just say I've never seen a player go from one of the most hated on the team to one of the most loved. It is amazing how quickly he has turned people around on what he brings to the table.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, another tool that players can use to really leverage themselves in contract negotiations, injuries. Bowles, touch wood. I mean, he's durable, and he's tough. I mean, he's dealt with various knee issues and things like that, and that might have, less tackles, might have decided to not play, but. PFF scores, they also, can leverage that. And Bowles' first 3 years worth of PFF scores, even when, he was being hated by most Broncos country, were actually higher than even Laramie Tunsil's as an average. So they can really leverage that now.
Yeah, and before we keep going, there was one thing I forgot to do in our orders of business earlier, and that is, you guys want to support us, at least I hope so. You can do so by going up to huddleuppod.com. You can get your swag on. You can get some awesome shirts like this, or the OK hat that Carl has on. You can get stuff for every single podcast that we have. We have new stuff coming. Awesome shirts, awesome hats. We have onesies for babies, all sorts of stuff, and definitely check that out. But if you guys aren't able to financially support us, you guys can also go and just subscribe to the show on iTunes, on Stitcher, on Spotify, on all these different things. You guys can like the shows as well, and you guys can share them out, spread out the word a little bit. It's always awesome to hear every now and then about how somebody who found our show through a third party, always awesome to hear those stories and everything like that, and just word of mouth. It's obviously such a big thing with everything. And then also go to facebook.com/MaliHuddle and become a supporter there as well. Growing community on Facebook. It's an awesome community that we're growing and trying to keep awesome. I mean, obviously everybody in this community as well. The whole Mile High Huddle community is just awesome, and you guys humble us every single day. But you guys can go and be a supporter there as well. Now, we do have another topic here after we got through the keys, and both of you guys got your keys for the defense out, right?
Yeah.
Just making sure I'm not okay. We're going to talk a little bit about with 2 games before the trade deadline. We're going to talk a little bit about that. But real quick, couple comments here. Charlie Beagle said, I caught my 2 halibut and homer. Best fish ever. Definitely, halibut is awesome. It is definitely one of the best fish there is. I would take halibut over salmon any day of the week. Then Casey Martin said, did you guys see how Nick Allegretti and Mike Remmers played against the Bills? Their offensive line didn't miss a beat. As a unit, they didn't miss a beat. But Nick Allegretti, he actually played pretty solid. But I focused in on what Mike Remmers did, and Mike Remmers looks like the Mike Remmers that faced against Von Miller in the Super Bowl. That's definitely beatable if you have a consistent edge pressure on him or edge rusher. And I think that's another reason why you put Bradley Chubb over there over Malik Reid.
Right.
Jerry Hughes is a solid guy, but I don't think he's quite on the level that Bradley Chubb is.
Right. And I would add, most likely those edge rushers and really just the rushers in general did not prepare on watching film on those kind of guys.
Yeah.
They did not expect them to play. And so it all of a sudden kind of becomes this whole new ball game. It's kind of like bringing in a new pitcher that's been in AAA that you have not watched at all. And all of a sudden they go out there and they look great. And I mean, I'm doing baseball here. And then the next game they come back and all of a sudden they just get knocked around the park. Well, people got film on them. Now you're preparing for him. You know that Mike Remmers is going to play. So Malik Reid, Bradley Chubb, all those guys, they're going to know what they're wanting to do to attack him.
Yeah.
And so that's why I would just say be careful when you're watching some of that. It's the same even with the Broncos. Let's say Reisner can't go and Schlottman has to play. He looked pretty decent when he came in. But now that a team has maybe been trying to prepare for him, does that change what happens and how they attack him?
Yeah, and something that I think a lot of people fail to realize is that every offensive lineman has different ways that you beat them. So not doing your work on them, on the backup guys. I mean, obviously you don't expect a guy like Mitchell Schwartz to go down. You don't expect offensive linemen to go down. So a lot of people, pass rushers, they don't prepare for that to happen. And I mean, it's the same way with cornerbacks too. You beat cornerbacks in different ways. There's different weaknesses for each player, and that's how you prep and to beat them. Charlie Beagle says, what about bloody Nigel Bradham? What's the deal with him? This is a comment that obviously I've been wanting to talk about for a while. I see it in all the other chats. And last week we actually didn't get a Bradham comment, and I was kind of a little bit disappointed. But people need to realize is that there's a reason why he was on the market for so long. There's a lot of questions about what his ability is at this point. There's some stuff with character there. That goes back to his time with the Philadelphia Eagles. I think that this would be a good game to have him active, because if the Broncos are struggling with Travis Kelce, it's a good time to get him out there. I think we haven't seen him playing so far up to this point, as it was just a matter of him trying to get the defense down. They're using him on the practice squad just for that added time to get that done.
Right. It takes time, especially I will say the Fangio defense asks a lot of their linebackers. This is where you're going to see I'm interested to see moving forward the fundamental difference between Fangio and his love of linebackers and Elway and his kind of, I don't know what you want to call it, but he doesn't like linebackers a whole lot.
Yeah.
He thinks they're a very replaceable position on a regular basis. But Fangio's linebackers, they really are asked to do a lot. And you have seen, though, that the Broncos have tried to cover up, taking Josie Jewell off, putting on like Duke Dawson or somebody like that to try to help with coverage. And so it wouldn't surprise me moving forward. Like I said, Nigel Bradham, I expect him to be called up for Sunday because this is really the first time I would say even all season that the Broncos, I guess you could say the Bucs have good tight ends, but otherwise this will be the first time they've played a really great tight end.
Yeah.
And so this is where Josie Jewell, Alexander Johnson, they cannot stay with that guy one-on-one. You need somebody else to step in, make a couple plays, and that might be Bradham for him.
And he was one of the 4 protected on the practice squad as well. So there's probably a better chance that he is made active this week.
And I think part of the thing, too, is that there was some hope that they'd be getting Mark Barron back. But his, a hamstring injury? Like, he's been having so many setbacks from that injury and everything that from conversations I've had, it sounds like that he may not be back this season. So, guys, that just goes to show that was such a great signing. Like, I tried defending it, saying that it wasn't, but moving on.
Yeah, and he's got another injury as well. He hurt his pec as well.
Yeah. And Brian Greenfield with another one says, I see people in the chat, $5 donation. Says, I see people in the chat saying Broncos win 27-20. LOL, we will have to score over 30 to win this game, I feel. Thoughts? I agree. I think if Denver wants to win this game, they'll need to put up at least 32 points, as I see the Chiefs putting up at least 31.
Their lowest output has been 23 points this year, I think, if I remember right. And they've had a 23-point and a 26-point, and I think everything else has been over 30. So, yes, this is not an easy matchup. I mean, Chiefs just put up points. That's why the Broncos decided, instead of trying to load up their defense to stop the Chiefs' offense, they said, we're going to load up our offense and try to see if we can keep up with them. And thankfully, guys have gotten healthy, so maybe they can do that this week. But you're right. I think I had the game, what was it? I had a little bit lower scoring just because of the weather, but I said 27-26, the Chiefs win. I think, you're going to have to score 30 to win it.
I did notice that a large portion of our score predictions for all of us at Mount Huddle, a lot of us had 27 points going either for the Broncos, for the Chiefs, and it was just kind of funny to see. I know my score, it was 31-27 going in favor of the Chiefs. I think that the Broncos getting all the pieces back, I think this is a good game that they can show that they're healthy and they can compete. But I do have plenty of concerns about the defense that they'll be able to close out the game.
Yeah.
I think I had it as 31-24 to the Chiefs. And I see Rich's comment about Mark Barron, is he a linebacker? Yes, he is a linebacker. Don't let the number fool you. He's a linebacker. And in terms of play style and coming downhill and everything.
Yeah.
Carlos Olivas with Carnalitos. Love y'all. Well, thank you, Carlos. We appreciate you and appreciate your $1.99 donation. As always, we appreciate everybody's donations, and we appreciate everybody who can't donate and supports us in different ways, which is especially understandable with the time with everything that's going on in the world, with all the financial hardship people are in. We just know that even if we don't get to your comments, guys, we appreciate you. We just got a lot of comments that we can't always get to everybody. I sure tried, though. I sure tried to fit as many comments into this as I can. Anyways, there are a couple more comments that we got to get to. Chris McKay says, where do you guys see Drew Lock's overall ceiling over these next few years? Thank you, Chris, for the donation. And this is something that has been a topic that's been mentioned a lot in our group chat. And all of us, I think, are in pretty close agreement as to what we kind of see as ceiling. Aren't we?
Yeah, I
think so.
I mean, if I'm going to put a name out there, I guess I would say Matthew Stafford.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of line up. They have the big arm, sometimes take more risks than they should, sometimes have, throughout their career, have had too much put on their shoulders to go out there and win, and then they get too much blame when they lose. I mean, Locke had that at Missouri. There's no way Missouri was going to compete in the SEC. Locke kind of kept them in a lot of games that they never should have been in, where, of course, Matthew Stafford with the Lions playing in the NFC North, yeah, he's never been surrounded by a whole lot of talent other than Calvin Johnson. So that's kind of the ceiling I see. I love Matthew Stafford. A year or two ago when Detroit was kind of tanking and doing some things and people were talking about Matthew Stafford going somewhere else, I would have loved to have seen him in Denver. And so, but that's a ceiling that I see. I don't know if he'll get there.
I mean, even if Locke doesn't work out, even if Locke doesn't work out, I mean, Matt Stafford would be a guy I would probably target as a trade. But go on, Eric.
My thing has always been, it's been somewhere between Derek Carr and Matthew Stafford for me. It's kind of a combination of the two players, those two quarterbacks, as what I see Drew Lock's ceiling can be. I think ultimately he ends up a little bit closer to Derek Carr than Matthew Stafford. I think Matthew Stafford has been a very underrated quarterback in the NFL for multiple years. I mean, has his issues, don't get me wrong, but there's also been a big issue of the talent around him. And then one more question before we get to our final topic here and we'll wrap it up. This was, let me see, is Mizzou and Broncos for life. I asked you guys right after we drafted Albert O. How do you feel about him? How you felt about him? How do you feel about him now? For me, anyways, it's pretty much the same. I haven't seen growth as a blocker. I mean, that always takes time. That is the one element of a tight end that takes the longest for them to develop. But Denver used them exactly how I thought they would or should. It wasn't a lot of complicated routes. It was a lot of like quick wheel routes or posts or goes, things like that. Simple routes that mostly had him running a straight line because the dude turns like a battleship. He's not the best turner. And it worked out for them. I mean, the drops, they suck. Something that he's got to work about. I think there's some timing issues there. And just something that, with more time, that can get worked out. And I think that this is a good game to really – I think that last week was the perfect game to start getting him involved because this week is the perfect game to really utilize him.
I'll say I did think he got in and out of his breaks when he was asked to turn a little bit better than what I saw at college.
Yeah.
It still wasn't great, but it was better because at college it really was. It felt like he almost would have to come to a stop and then kind of make the turn. Now it actually made some plays. I mean, his big pass catch that he made was on an in route.
Yeah.
And I thought he looked pretty good on that one, got himself some separation, and he should be helped by even more having Noah Fant because they're going to give more attention to Noah Fant. So he's going to have those one-on-one matchups. It's kind of like that wheel route he did run where he got hit in the end zone, dropped it, unfortunately. I know a lot of people were after Locke for not throwing it to Jerry Jeudy on that play. I think people need to go back and watch that. Locke made the right read.
Yeah, I think
it just didn't work out.
The biggest thing with that play is they need to look at the timing of when Locke is winding up compared to when Jerry Jeudy is coming out of his break and getting separation, because Locke is in the middle of his windup to Albert Okwuegbunam when Jeudy actually gets that separation.
Right. So it's still not my favorite pick that the Broncos made. I do see some opportunities like against the Chiefs where their biggest weakness is their linebackers in coverage and their safeties in coverage. So one of the best ways you can attack them, have two athletic tight ends that can attack the middle of the field. That's a great matchup for them. I think other games, though, like against the Patriots, I don't think that's a great way to attack them, is to have the two linebackers. So at least that's the nice thing with the Broncos is they have a little bit more versatility in how they can call a game, what kind of plays they can run in each game compared to probably the last 5 years combined.
Yeah. And I'll add, too, is like one of my big reasons for not getting Albert Okwuegbunam out there was the blocking of Jake Butt and Nick Vannett. But at this point, I'm ready to say you can throw them aside. If you're going to have somebody have an extra blocker stay in line, just use an extra offensive lineman. Jake Butt and Nick Vannett are not worth it. So, guys, before we get out of here, one quick final question from each of you guys. Depending on how the next two game goes, and you guys can elaborate a little bit on how you think they go, do you think the Broncos should be buyers or sellers before the trade deadline? And one player, if you think they're buyers, or even not, one player you would like to see the Broncos go after. James, you can go ahead.
I think there's a few trades that I'd like to see happen, even if they're kind of stuck in neutral. If there's any truth whatsoever to these Quinnen Williams rumors, go after him. Like, if it's a second and 2022 third or whatever, do it. Quinnen Williams is phenomenal talent. Would just juice up, and it's the 3 years of team control that would be really good. Another one I really like is Foy Oluokun, the Falcons linebacker, maybe a fourth or fifth, something like that. 2 more years of team control. He's a bit small, but he is a good coverage linebacker, and I'm all about juicing the coverage ability of this defense, even if he might struggle with the ability to fill. But he can help on special teams. He's smart as well, so modern day linebackers, that's where the NFL's going.
Good choice. I like it. So to me, it all comes down to this Chiefs game. Like the next one, if the Broncos find a way to beat the Chiefs, they should become decent buyers. I mean, not go out there and waste their first round pick or anything like that. But I wouldn't mind them going out and one of my favorites, we loved him in the draft, Zach Cunningham. I know he just signed a big contract with the Texans, but right now they have to look like they're going to be sellers because they're not winning that division, and they're going to want some draft capital that they've given away over these last couple of years. And so that would be one guy just because of his size. He can match up against guys like Darren Waller, Travis Kelce, he can be that guy that can actually try to cover them one-on-one. And so I have no problem going with that. I see Richa coming in here saying Broncos should be sellers and buyers. There are a couple players I don't mind for them, even if they win against the Chiefs, going ahead and selling. Yes,
Hamilton.
right, because you want to make room for the young guys coming in. You want to give Tyree Cleveland a chance to go out there and show what he can do. Hamilton hasn't really – I mean, the only thing he's really brought is he's a decent run blocker, and he can help out a little bit on special teams. That's about it. And so, yeah, if you can go and trade him to the Packers for even a bag of chips.
7th round.
Well, yeah, if that's what it is, I'd take that. Yeah, if it's for a sandwich, I would take that. If you can pair him in a trade for like a Quinnen Williams or a Zach Cunningham, boom, go for it. That just helps the Broncos to figure out some of their 53-man roster. So, yes, I could see them even be sellers and buyers all at the same time.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think that I'm going to go a little bit different from Carl. And I'm going to say if they beat the Chiefs, they should say screw it. They should trade their first-round pick for Quinnen Williams. They should trade their second-round pick for J.J. Watt. They should trade their next year's first for Zach Cunningham. They should just go all out.
So just bring the Texans team to the Broncos. Yeah.
Hey, man, the Texans aren't using them correctly. They're being terrible. Hey, they can help out the Broncos. But also, in all seriousness, I do agree. It depends on what happens with the Chiefs. Even if they are competitive against the Chiefs and lose it, there's a couple of trades that I would like to see them go get. Zach Cunningham, he's one that comes to mind. So, Carl, we've talked about this a little bit, is I want a guy more on the defensive line, even with Draymond Jones coming back. Shelby Harris is the free agent. Terrell Casey's a year older. He's coming back. I'd go after Quinnen Williams. I've make no bones about that. I think he could absolutely be devastating in Vic Fangio's defensive line. I'll look at linebackers. I mean, Zach Cunningham, Eric Kendricks from the Vikings, who they're trying to sell. He was a name that came up prior to the season after they cut Todd Davis. But, the Vikings, they thought they would be able to be competitive. They're obviously not. They're a bad team. And a lot of that falls on Gary Kubiak and, of course, bringing in Rick Dennison as a terrible coach. But, yeah, it really is. And then when it comes to selling, I mean, Deshaun Hamilton, we talked about him. Devontae Harris, what's he even doing? I mean, he's now on this. He's dead weight at this point. I look at trading that dead weight. Open up the play time for other players that you want to see get action. You want to see Tyree Cleveland get out there on the offense, because his one catch that he had against the Titans, it was a good catch. He showed potential there. You want to get these players out there. You want to part ways with the dead weight. And you want to buy guys that can come in and help. I would look at more younger, cost-controlled guys like Quinnen Williams, as I said. There's another linebacker who I've heard has been on the market. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. He's in his third year. He was I think he's in his third year. It was a day 2, day 3 pick, I think, but he's actually kind of exceeded expectations. Been a big cover guy. So I kind of look his way. I wish I could remember the name escaped me just as I started talking about him. But yeah, I definitely look a couple different ways. But it really does. It all comes back to Quinnen Williams. He'd be the prize for me to go out there and get. And just to make this clear, is I don't think the Broncos will do much movement. I could see them trading away a Deshaun Hamilton, maybe a Devontae Harris. I could see them doing something like that for like a 7th round pick at some point, maybe even a conditional 7th round pick. I don't think that they'd be big buyers. I think the biggest thing with them is with the issues they have with ownership, with the issues they have of bringing funds into the team. I think that, and of course the cap dropping as well, I think they don't want to bring in a bunch of money on the cap this year to be able to roll as much of it over next year so they can have some wiggle room and then use their draft picks on cost control players. I mean, Quinnen Williams, for me, 2nd round pick, you lose a year of cost control, 3 years for Quinnen Williams, 4 years for that pick, so that would be worth it to me, but I just don't think that Denver does.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
That's the shame.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for us. We appreciate all of you guys joining us. James, we appreciate you joining us all the way from over the pond. It's been great to have you on. And as I said before, told you privately, but Lance and I have been wanting to get you on for a while, and just so many issues. And I know how much I know you like the draft a little bit, and we definitely want to get you on again, talk about the draft a little bit more. But that'll have to wait till after the season because chat doesn't like it when I talk about the draft, apparently. And Carl, as always, it's always great having you on. I mean, you're definitely in a class by yourself when it comes to those of us at Mile High Huddle, and that's because
Well, thank you.
you being a passer, that just kind of puts you in a thing by yourself. But no, it's always awesome talking with you guys. I mean, in the private chat here, just being able to talk about football and just everything, and being joined by the chat who have sometimes some awesome takes. Not gonna lie, sometimes some okay ones, guys. But thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you. I'll see you next week. Carl, we'll see you tomorrow. Tuesday.
Yes.
I couldn't remember if you were taking over for Nick because of his anniversary, and
No, Luke's taking over for him on Tuesday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, all right, guys. So that's gonna do it for us. And James, any last words, guys?
Well, thank you for all your time, and go Broncos.
Yeah, he said it perfect.
All right, guys. Thank you guys for joining us. Have a wonderful time. Lance will be back next week, I believe, unless something bad happens to him, which hopefully he doesn't. I kind of miss my podcast partner, guys. I'm not going to lie. It's been great having you on last 2 weeks, Carl, but Lance has a special place dear in my heart.
I understand.
All right, guys. Have a good night. Go Broncos.